Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to the dusty main street of a lawless western town. The kind where the air is hot, the floorboards creak, and the drinks are stronger than the dental hygiene. But tonight, we're not here for the cowboy shootouts or gold digger legends. Nope, you're stepping through the swinging saloon doors and locking eyes with the woman really running the show, the madam. Her smile is practiced, polite, and probably hiding a derringer under her silk-trimmed petticoat. Around her waist, the keys to a kingdom of liquor, gambling, music, and mayhem. And behind her, a staircase leading to secrets you probably don't want to know about, but you're going up anyway. Hope you brought clean socks. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time is it there? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand just inside the saloon, blinking as your eyes adjust. Red velvet curtains, oil lamps sputtering against the walls. A piano clinks half-heartedly from the corner, where some guy named Otis has probably been drinking since 4 p.m. But she, the madam, she's already clocked you. Not as a threat, not yet. But you're tall, dusty, and you look like someone who might spend $1 or $2. She floats across the floor. Not dainty, controlled, measured. There's steel under the satin. You catch a glimpse of it in her eyes before she smooths her skirts and slips into character. "Evenin', stranger," she says, her voice honey-thick with something that might be charm, or might be danger. You look like you need a drink, and maybe a bath. You'd think running a saloon was about pouring whiskey and avoiding bar fights. But if that were true, half the cowhands in Arizona would be moguls. The truth is, madams weren't just bar managers. They were master manipulators, survivalists in silk. Most of them didn't start out in charge. They earned that lace and title with years of grit, and more than a few bruises. Some came west because they had no other option, widowed, divorced, cast out. Some were trafficked or tricked, then clawed their way into power $1 at a time. Others saw opportunity and jumped into the game willingly. That last group? Rarer than gold teeth in a bishop's smile. But once you had your own saloon, especially one with rooms upstairs, you weren't just a woman in business. You were a woman against business, against law, against every respectable preacher on the block. And yet, you were also the heartbeat of the town. Madams provided more than whiskey and company. They gave cowboys a reason to stay civil, gave lawmen something to protect or to extort, gave gamblers a place to lose their money with flair. Some historians argue madams actually stabilized these chaotic boomtowns more than the sheriffs ever did. Others say they just polished the rot. But tonight, you're not a scholar. You're a shadow in the corner, watching her juggle a dozen things without blinking. 2 ranch hands argue near the bar. She gestures, and her bouncer appears from nowhere, a brick wall in suspenders. One of the girls at a back table looks pale. Madame whispers to another woman, and suddenly there's water, a cold cloth, and a quiet hand on her back. "And you? You try to order whiskey." She nods, but you don't get the brand you asked for. You get what she wants you to have, because supply chains are a mess, and branding is everything. And she knows better than to let you taste how watered down the good stuff really is. Her derringer? Yeah, it's real. Tucked snug against her thigh in a garter holster. She hasn't had to use it this week, but there's a fresh box of ammo in the safe, just in case. You glance up at the staircase, the one behind the curtain. Some of the girls have come down now, their faces painted and eyes already scanning for spenders. They lean close when they talk to clients, all sighs and soft fingers. But their eyes flick to her, always. She runs this place like a general. And like any good general, she knows when to keep her troops close, and when to send them upstairs. Every item on her is a message. The cameo at her throat? A gift from a railroad investor who disappeared 2 winters ago. The ring on her pinky once belonged to a sheriff's wife. Lost it here in a card game she shouldn't have been playing. Her perfume? Musk with a sharp edge of something floral. You'll remember it for weeks after you leave, assuming you make it out sober. And yet, as powerful as she is, she plays a delicate game. Too much control and the girls will run. Too little and the place descends into chaos. She fires women quietly, pays bribes in cash, and once buried a man out back without telling a soul. He'd drawn on her girl over a game of blackjack. Self-defense, sort of. But the town was tired of blood that week. There's a whispered legend that she once shot a preacher in the leg after he tried to torch her saloon. Historians still argue whether it was actually her, or whether the preacher invented the story to earn sympathy. Either way, the town backed off after that. No one likes a holy man with a limp. As the night deepens, the air thickens with sweat, perfume, and bourbon. And she never sits. Not once. She moves constantly, eyes everywhere, one hand always near her hip. You think about leaving, but something holds you. Maybe it's the music or the danger, or the way she looks right through you like she knows exactly what kind of man you are. You won't survive this place. Not really, but for tonight you'll pretend. You wake with the stale scent of whiskey on your shirt and the ghost of a piano tune still rattling around in your head. The town is quieter now, dawn just beginning to slide its pale light between the warped wooden slats of the buildings. But inside the saloon the work never stopped, and neither did she. The madam's day starts long before yours. While you were still dreaming of poker wins and perfume-drenched embraces, she was in the back room, counting out coin stacks and rewriting contracts. Not every woman who works here is a willing participant, and even the ones who are, they have their own contracts. Some legitimate, some written on napkins, and all of them stacked with fine print that would make a New York banker blush. She recruits women the way a talent agent might. Charm, persuasion, and occasionally, a well-placed lie. Some girls arrive fresh off the stagecoach, eyes wide and hopeful, clutching letters from a cousin who supposedly found opportunity here. You'll never meet that cousin, of course. And by the time the girl figures that out, she's already in debt to the madam for train fare, clothes, meals, and a bed. It's called the boarding system, and it's genius in a grimy sort of way. The girls are charged for everything. Their dresses, their makeup, their food, their bedsheets, and the madam tallies the charges nightly. If the girl earns more than her expenses, she gets a cut. If not, the debt grows fast. Historians still debate whether this was exploitation or a necessary evil. Some madams claimed they were simply offering business arrangements in a rough economy. Others, their girls ran away in the middle of the night, barefoot, bleeding, and terrified. And that says plenty. But don't picture a villain in a corset twisting her mustache. Most madams walked the tightrope between profit and collapse. If she pushed the girls too hard, they'd leave. If she didn't push hard enough, they'd get lazy or worse, freeload. And if they ever unionized, well, let's just say one Colorado madam once spiked her own wine stock with laxatives just to sabotage a worker protest. Petty? Sure. Effective? Very. Every night, new faces roll into town. Miners, drifters, soldiers on furlough, and every night, she sizes them up. Who's got cash? Who's dangerous? Who's drunk enough to be generous, but not so drunk they'll vomit in the stairwell again? She trains her girls to do the same. Eye contact, hand placement, posture. It's theater, all of it. And the madam? She's the director, the producer, and the casting agent rolled into one. One of her most lucrative tactics? Upsells. A girl might offer conversation for free, but the madams taught her to steer the talk toward drinks, house drinks, which are marked up by 400%. Most of those colored liquids in delicate glasses aren't even real liquor. Sugar water, bitters, a splash of brandy if she's feeling generous. The girl gets a commission, the madam gets most of it. It's not just about money, it's about flow. A saloon lives and dies by rhythm. Too slow, and the place feels like a funeral home. Too rowdy and you risk a shootout. She keeps it pulsing. Music, laughter, coin jingling in pockets. If someone stalls out, she notices immediately. And God help the man who tries to skip out on his bill. She has a standing arrangement with a local blacksmith, built like a freight car and twice as mean. You don't want him following you out into the street at sunrise. He doesn't ask questions. He just drags you back and dumps you at her feet like a broken pocket watch. She's fair, though, in her way. If you're short a coin or two and you apologize, maybe offer to sweep the front steps or clean out the spittoons, she might let it slide. Once. But her mercy has a shelf life. Keep testing her and you'll find yourself blacklisted, which in a town like this is basically a death sentence. No drinks, no games, no girls. Not even a chair to sit in. You become a ghost in a place built for flesh. It's easy to forget that the girls have their own internal hierarchy, too. Some are veterans, sharp, efficient, calculating. They get the prime tables, the best gowns, the most lenient curfews. Others are still learning the ropes. They'll watch the older ones flirt like chess masters, mimicking moves but never quite understanding the strategy. And always the madam watches, coaching with a glance, correcting with a gesture, rewarding with real silk, not the cheap blends, punishing with a cold look or, worse, silence. Sometimes a girl will ask for better pay, a softer bed, more respect. Sometimes she gets it. More often, she's reminded of her contract and the line of women waiting to take her place. But don't mistake this for coldness. The madam knows each girl's real name, her birthday, the name of the dog she left back in Kansas. She might not show it, but she remembers. She might even give a girl a bonus for sending money home. Quietly, discreetly. Reputation is everything. One odd story still circles in dusty towns. A madam in Nevada who paid for a girl's dental surgery and bought her mother a sewing machine. Locals called it charity. Others whispered about guilt. Historians? They still argue whether it was a PR stunt or an act of real kindness. Either way, the girl stayed. For years. Back inside the saloon, the madam signs a contract for a fresh shipment of velvet drapes. On credit, of course. She'll pay it off by month's end, if the railroad workers don't drink her dry first. You lean back in your chair, watching the way she moves through the room like she owns every breath in it. And in a way, she does. The sun creeps higher, throwing angled light across the warped saloon floor. Dust floats like sleepy glitter through the air. You blink, and for a moment the place looks like a chapel, if chapels served bourbon and card tricks. You're not the only one watching the room breathe awake. The madam, always 3 steps ahead, is already inspecting every corner. Not with a feather duster and apron, mind you. She's no maid. But she knows how the space moves, and more importantly, how men feel inside it. This isn't just a room. It's a stage, a honey trap, a money funnel dressed up in fringe and gilt. Every mirror is angled just so. The bar is slightly too high so you feel smaller. The piano's been tuned badly, to a near-perfect level of melancholy. And those curtains you assumed were just old theater leftovers? Imported from New Orleans. Red velvet, deep and rich enough to swallow secrets whole. She chose everything. The rugs, the wallpaper, the scent of the candles. All carefully curated to make you stay longer, spend more, and feel like you're being naughty in the most polite way possible. See, madams weren't just flesh merchants. They were interior designers with degrees in psychology no one ever issued. The right light can make a miner look like a poet. The right sofa can turn a scared newcomer into a swaggering gambler. These details matter, and she knows it. The paintings on the wall, half of them are fake French Impressionist knockoffs, intentionally chosen because they make you think of Paris, romance, and things just out of reach. 1 or 2 are real, stolen, or traded for favors. But the illusions work the same. You don't question why a mining town in Nevada has an oil painting of swans and naked muses. You just order another drink. This atmosphere, it's strategic. Studies done a century later would call it immersive environment marketing. The madam just calls it good business. She even adjusted the furniture placement last winter when she noticed that men spent more time gambling if they had to walk through the dance floor first. More time near women meant more money on the table. A tweak in traffic flow turned into a 20% spike in whiskey sales. Coincidence? Please. Her desk. Yes, she has a desk. Is tucked behind a beaded curtain in a room that smells of ink and lilac powder. Here she does her real work. Ink-stained ledgers, tax estimates, menus of services, coded in vague poetry, and notes from girls who want time off. There's always a bottle of rye nearby, usually untouched. She prefers to stay sharp. You peer over a girl's shoulder as she writes a letter by candlelight. Dearest Mama, it begins. The saloon is as pretty as any hotel, and the owner is kind. It's not a lie exactly, but it's not the truth either. Somewhere in the balance between illusion and survival, the madam has created a space that feels better than it is. Not everyone is impressed. Traveling preachers and crusading ladies' leagues routinely barge into places like this, armed with Bibles and frowns. They call it a den of sin. She calls it a job site. And the town council? They oscillate like a broken compass. One week they're threatening to shut her down. The next they're asking if she can host a visiting dignitary for a discreet evening. She adjusts accordingly, sometimes with wine, sometimes with blackmail. You find yourself trailing a hand along the smooth wood of the banister. It's worn from hundreds of hands, from excitement, fear, and the ache of being noticed. Upstairs waits the next layer of her design. A set of rooms with different personalities. Some are gaudy. Gold drapes, stuffed pillows, a painting of Venus looking scandalized. Others are sparse, clean, almost nun-like, for men who say they don't want that kind of place, but still climb the stairs anyway. One room has a clawfoot tub. That alone makes it the most valuable square footage in town. There's a story about a saloon in Tombstone that featured a rotating bed. Not a metaphor, a literal spinning bed on a central axle. Historians still argue whether it was practical or just a gimmick to entertain drunk gamblers. Either way, the madam here has heard of it, and she's not impressed. I make more money off soap and decent curtains, she once said, adjusting a mirror by a quarter inch. Let the bed spin. My place seduces. And she's not wrong. The decor isn't just for looks. It gives her leverage. If a visiting businessman demands a discount, she raises an eyebrow and gestures to the velvet, the gold accents, the crystal decanter. This is the finest establishment west of St. Louis, she says, with the kind of voice that implies it's his honor to be here. And just like that, he pays full price. You wonder if it ever gets to her, putting so much care into a world that most folks consider shameful. But if it does, she hides it well. She once spent an entire week importing lampshades from San Francisco, just because the local ones made the walls look jaundiced. That's dedication, quirky touch. She has a superstition about furniture. Never buys anything secondhand if the previous owner died suddenly. Bad spirits stick to upholstery, she says, and nobody's brave enough to argue. She once burned an entire chaise lounge in the alley because a banker keeled over in it after a stroke. Now there's salt buried under the floorboards where it used to stand. Some folks in town whisper about witchcraft. She just smirks. You lean against the bar again, taking it all in. This place wasn't just built for profit, it was built to feel like escape. From the outside world. From judgment. From the cold, hard truth that most people out here are barely surviving. Inside these walls, reality bends. For a price. And she built it that way. It's late afternoon now, and the sun glares through the saloon's swinging doors like it's judging everyone inside. The piano's taken a break. The girls are upstairs fixing their hair or taking turns with the one half-decent mirror. And the scent in the air is a ripe mix of cigar smoke, spilled whiskey, and ambition. The madam? She hasn't stopped moving. She's at her desk, sleeves rolled just past her elbows, counting coin like it's a sacred ritual. And in a way, it is. Each dollar represents a conversation handled well, a drink sold at a markup, a client managed with enough charm to keep him coming back, and not coming unglued. Here's what you probably didn't expect. The madam isn't just the face of the operation. She's also the banker, bouncer, and babysitter. Start with the banker bit. Every dime that comes through the saloon gets logged, balanced, divided, and stashed. She has separate books, one for the legitimate liquor and card game revenue, one for boarding services, and one so shadowy it's practically folklore. That third ledger includes late-night loans, debt forgiveness trades, and bartered favors that only she understands. She knows how much each girl owes her down to the nickel. She also knows which supplier's about to up their prices again, which sheriff is looking for a reason to fine her, and which week she'll need to pay off the piano man's gin tab just to keep him playing. Out back, hidden beneath a loose floorboard under a stack of crates, there's a cash stash wrapped in oilcloth. That's for emergencies. Fire, arrest, town riot, plague, pick your Wild West disaster. She's got a mental checklist and a go bag. And when the math doesn't work, she adjusts. Maybe she changes the drink menu, calls watered-down rye Gold Miners Reserve, or she hosts a themed night. Cowboys get half off their first drink if they come in with their spurs on. It's gimmicky. It works. But just because she counts coin doesn't mean she won't throw hands. She's also the bouncer. Most saloons have one big guy in suspenders and boots who handles the violence. She does too, Big Artie, who once broke a table with a man's head. But even he defers to her. If she raises one eyebrow, Artie moves. Sometimes she doesn't need him. You're there the night a traveler, drunk, bitter, and fresh from being fired at the rail yard, grabs one of the girls by the wrist hard enough to leave bruises. Before anyone else moves, the madam's already across the room. No yelling, no drama. She just slides between them, smiles so sweetly it's terrifying, and whispers something into his ear that makes him blanch. He drops the girl's hand, apologizes, leaves. No one ever hears what she said. But the next day he's gone. So is his horse. So is part of his pride. She doesn't talk about it. She doesn't need to. Being the babysitter is, oddly, the hardest role of all. Not because the girls are helpless, they're not. But because they're human. They cry. They fall in love with the wrong men. They get sick. They turn on each other over tips and dresses. Sometimes they even break. She's there for all of it. When Annie finds out her sister died back east, the madam gives her a day off, a bottle of something better than rotgut, and slips a silver ring into her hand without a word. When June gets pregnant, the madam sends her quietly to a midwife 2 towns over, pays for it in full, and no one ever hears the baby's name. When Clara vanishes in the middle of the night, leaving only a shawl and a page from the Bible, the madam searches the creek herself at dawn, boots soaked, jaw clenched. Historians still argue whether madams protected their girls or just protected their investment. The truth is, often it was both. Survival doesn't always come wrapped in kindness. Sometimes, it's a warm meal, a loaded pistol, and a warning not to make her choose between you and the saloon's reputation. You glance upstairs, where giggles float down the staircase. Someone's playing cards. Someone's brushing out their hair. They're not saints, these women, but they trust her. Well, most of them do. When there's conflict, jealousy, name-calling, bruises left by unseen hands, she becomes judge and jury. She doesn't scream. She doesn't force rules. No stealing, no backstabbing. No sneaking clients out the back door to pocket full payment. Do that once, you get a warning. Twice, you leave with your things in a pillowcase and no one dares speak your name again. She once resolved a dispute between 2 girls by making them polish every glass in the bar together while sitting in total silence. 3 hours later, they were laughing. Bonded by boredom, probably. But it worked. That's her talent. She doesn't just run a business. She maintains a delicate, volatile, absolutely bonkers ecosystem held together by perfume and spite. And outside, the town still doesn't know what to make of her. Some call her that woman. Others nod respectfully when she walks by, never meeting her eyes. The mayor once suggested naming a street after her, half joking. She didn't laugh. She offered to buy the street instead. One quiet evening, a schoolteacher from Boston visits the saloon. She walks in, head high, clearly trying not to look scandalized. Orders a soda water. Sits at the far end of the bar. The madam approaches. "Something I can help you with?" The teacher, nervous but curious, says she's writing letters about the moral condition of the frontier, wants to ask questions. The madam smiles, offers her tea in the back office. They speak for over an hour. No one knows what they talked about, but the next day the teacher mails her letters and includes a donation to the town orphanage. There are no business cards, no titles, no gold plaques on her door. But the madam holds more power than most judges and all but 1 or 2 sheriffs. Because she's not just a keeper of secrets. She's a manufacturer of calm in a world built on chaos. You sip something warm, watching her cross the room with a ledger in one hand and a whiskey in the other. She balances both without spilling either. And you realize, this place doesn't run despite her. It runs because of her. Evening settles like a wool blanket, thick and itchy, wrapping the town in its dusty hush. Lamps flicker to life in the saloon, casting golden halos across chipped glassware and creased playing cards. The madam's silhouette glides past the windows, backlit by kerosene light, and you follow her through a familiar ritual that feels equal parts military inspection and mother hen's rounds. But tonight, something's off. You can feel it in the way she lingers by the staircase, eyes narrowed, lips pinched. She knows what you're about to learn. This isn't just a business. It's a delicate, biological machine. And when one part breaks down, especially the human part, it can bring the whole thing crashing down. Let's talk illness. And not the polite kind that keeps to itself. The saloon girls live in close quarters, share linens, bathrooms, hairbrushes. They lean close to whisper in clients' ears, get kissed, coughed on, pawed at. It's a miracle they stay upright for more than a week. So the madame becomes, by necessity, a kind of doctor, den mother, and makeshift epidemiologist, years before anyone invents penicillin or gloves that aren't made of questionable leather. She keeps a stash of ointments in her private quarters. Sulfur powder, mercury balm, willow bark. There's also a frightening bottle labeled cure-all that smells like vinegar, turpentine, and broken dreams. But when someone starts coughing up blood, it's all she has. A girl named Molly is burning up upstairs. You hear the murmur from the others, their voices tight with worry. The madam enters the room without hesitation, sits by her side, presses a cold cloth to her forehead. She doesn't flinch, doesn't ask if it's contagious, just gets to work. This is the part nobody sees. The messy, heartbreaking part where a woman trained in survival becomes a nurse in a corset. She orders molasses water, checks Molly's pulse with the back of her hand, and, later, whispers a prayer that she pretends isn't a prayer. Sickness isn't rare. Syphilis, gonorrhea, consumption, these weren't just risks. They were occupational hazards. The madam had to walk the tightrope between discretion and vigilance. Say too much and you scare off clients. Say too little and you risk a full-blown outbreak. Some madams partnered with local pharmacists, trading services or coin for medicine. Others, like her, learned how to make tinctures themselves. Boil bark, steep leaves, crumble chalk and mix it with vinegar. You're not trying to cure, just manage, delay, stabilize. Historians still argue whether madams helped or harmed their girls by operating their own health systems. Some say it kept women safe when no one else would. Others call it just another form of control, regulating bodies like inventory. One quirk: this madam believes in diagnosing by dreams. If a girl dreams of broken teeth, she orders a full day of rest and no client contact. Nightmares about drowning, salt in the bathwater and mint tea, no questions asked. It's a superstition, sure, but so far it's worked better than the town doctor, who once mistook dysentery for indigestion and nearly killed half a boarding house. She also insists on rotating rooms. Bad energy settles like dust, she says. No girl sleeps in the same bed 2 nights in a row if someone has a fever. And every mattress is aired daily, beat with a broom handle until the birds fly off the roof. Cleanliness is obsession. You've never seen anyone mop hardwood floors with such vengeance. She buys soap in bulk, vinegar by the jug. There's even a small stove upstairs just to heat water for foot baths. It doesn't smell like roses, it smells like antiseptic fear. But it helps. There's a story she tells when someone questions her rules. About a saloon in Kansas that refused to isolate a sick girl. Within 2 weeks, 3 women were dead and the sheriff's wife started coughing. The whole place was burned to the ground by a mysterious fire. No one was charged. That kind of caution makes her cold, sometimes. If someone's coughing too much, they're removed from duty. If a client has a rash or looks pale in the wrong way, she discreetly tells the girls to avoid him. If he protests, she smiles sweetly and offers him a drink on the house, then adds his name to a list in her ledger, under watch closely. It's not just the girls she protects. Sometimes it's the men. Old miners with lung rot, lonely soldiers with haunted eyes, travelers who look one blink away from collapsing. She sends them water, bread, sometimes a blanket to keep after they leave. No one ever says thank you. She never expects them to, but she keeps doing it. Quirky habit? She keeps dried lavender bundles under every bed. Claims it keeps away fleas and unrestful spirits. She also sprinkles crushed peppermint leaves around the baseboards once a month. Some girls roll their eyes, but others say the place feels better afterward. Less heavy. The girls listen to her health tips the way kids listen to strict aunts. Some grumble, some obey. All of them, though, remember the time she stitched Clara's leg herself. Tight, neat rows of thread like embroidery. After a client kicked her. No doctor. No chart. Just whiskey, grit, and steady hands. You find her later that night, sitting in her office, the ledger closed, her fingers stained from scrubbing. She's tired, maybe more than usual, but her eyes are clear, steady. Still breathing, she mutters, mostly to herself. That's something. You realize now that her job isn't just about profit. It's about keeping a little pocket of stability stitched together in a world that unravels far too easily. Some women knit. She runs a saloon full of barely legal medical miracles. And somehow, she keeps the whole thing upright. The night winds begin to howl like an old dog with opinions. Dust swirls past the saloon doors, and out on the main street, a few lanterns flicker, struggling against the wind's moody tantrum. You'd think the madam would be locking up by now, calling it a night, counting her coin with a glass of something strong in hand. But instead, she's in the back room, meeting with a man you instantly know she does not trust. He's clean-shaven. That's the first red flag. Wearing a sheriff's star that looks a little too polished, boots that haven't touched manure in weeks. He's smiling like a salesman, not a lawman. And the madam? She's leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, every inch of her body saying, "Get to the point before I lose interest." This is what you didn't realize before. Running a saloon is political warfare. And tonight's meeting is one of 100 like it. Bribes, bargains, careful dances with the very law that pretends to oppose her. See, saloons and houses upstairs were rarely technically legal, but they weren't fully illegal either. They lived in a shadowy space between tolerance and threat, and that shadow was shaped by people like the slick sheriff with his rehearsed charm. The madam offers him a drink, not because she's feeling generous, but because this is the dance. You offer the drink. He refuses once, then accepts. You pour it. You both know it's more about ritual than thirst. He wants a cut of her profits, naturally. Not directly. He frames it as a cleanliness inspection fee. Last week, it was a window tax. Next month, it'll be something about lantern safety. The names don't matter. The gold does. She negotiates calmly, not a flicker of panic. Offers him a lesser cut than he asked for, but adds in one free night at the poker table per month. It's generous enough to save face, stingy enough to keep her power. They shake hands. You can almost smell the discomfort on him because she wins. Again, that's how she survives. She pays what she must, but never enough to be owned. She greases palms, yes, but never the same ones too many times. Rotate your bribes like your whiskey barrels. Don't let anything get stale. Historians still argue whether madams corrupted the law or simply adapted to survive in a lawless system. The truth? The system was never meant for women like her, so she twisted it just enough to breathe. You hear stories from the girls. How last year, the madam slipped a town councilman a ledger page by accident. It showed what he owed her in gambling debts, neatly totaled. Funny thing, the next day, her business license was mysteriously extended by 2 years. She doesn't threaten. She just reminds. There's a phrase they use for her behind closed doors. The lady with the long memory. She forgets nothing. Not kindness, not insults. Not the name of that marshal who once tried to raise her taxes and then woke up 2 towns over wearing only 1 boot and a daisy chain. Some towns are more hostile than others. In Wyoming, one madam was jailed for operating an immoral business, but only after she stopped paying off the deputy. Public outcry got her released within a week. Turned out half the town relied on her taxes and the other half owed her favors. Justice blinked and walked away. This madam learned from that. She donates to the school, pays for oil at the chapel, even if she hasn't set foot inside in a decade. When the mayor's daughter needed emergency travel money, the envelope arrived anonymously, but she saw who accepted the delivery at the back door. And now, the mayor votes her way. Every time. Another quirk. She loves paperwork. While most folks avoid it like rattlesnakes, she dives in, keeps duplicates, writes her own contracts, uses different color inks for different types of bribes. Blue for lawmen, green for judges, red for special arrangements. One drawer in her office is dedicated to letters from lawyers, cease and desists, tax audits, moral committee summons. She reads them like bedtime stories, chuckles, and files them alphabetically. You once caught her reading one aloud like it was a stage play. To whom it may concern, we hereby notify you that your establishment violates code. She chuckled at the word violates. But don't mistake her for arrogant. She knows this game has teeth, and she never turns her back on the law completely. She insists on witness logs. Every girl signs in and out of work, even if they live upstairs. Every broken bottle gets recorded. Every bar fight that involves a weapon, written down with full names if she knows them. She's built her own insurance policy, one record at a time. And if the day comes that some temperance committee or traveling judge comes sniffing around, she'll open those ledgers, gesture to her clean floors, and point out that no law has technically been broken. Just a place for weary folks to rest and hydrate, she'll say, smiling like a cat with butter on its whiskers. There's an open debate among historians about whether this level of manipulation was sustainable, or if madams eventually got eaten by the same systems they outsmarted. The truth, as usual, is more layered. Some retired quietly, wealthy and anonymous. Some vanished. Some burned too brightly and were swallowed whole. But this one, she's still here. She sweeps through the saloon as the sheriff leaves, lips tight but hands full of compromise. Her girls watch her, respect her, fear her a little, and you, just a guest on the fringes, feel the tension ease as the night resumes its rhythm. The drinks flow again, laughter bubbles, the piano stirs awake, and in her office under lock and key, another ledger is updated. Not with numbers, just names. The saloon smells like sugar-dipped tobacco and warm sweat by nightfall. Someone spilled cider, and a poker game's reached the shouting phase. A few chairs scrape angrily across the floor, but the madam doesn't flinch. She knows how far it'll go loud. Maybe a shove, but nothing her presence won't douse. She steps into view, arms folded, no words necessary. The boys quiet down. One even apologizes. To her, not to the man he just threatened. And that's your cue to pay closer attention. You're watching a woman who survives by controlling her reputation in a town that can't decide if it wants to worship her or hang her. By daylight, she's a scandal. The preacher says so every Sunday. Schoolmarms cross the street when she passes. Even the widow who runs the bakery calls her that woman. Like the title itself is poison. But once the sun sets, the world flips. Then she's queen of the street. The mayor's clerk comes by to check if her cellar needs repairs. Married ranchers slip inside with their hats pulled low. A traveling banker offers her free whiskey in exchange for good company and maybe a quiet room upstairs. She declines, politely, and raises his rent next time. It's not hypocrisy, it's survival. She's learned to walk both sides of the line depending on who's looking. Sundays, she wears gray, pulls her shawl high, and donates to the church's roof fund. Wednesdays, a private poetry night for respectable gentlemen. Candles low, music softer than a whisper. Friday, a full brass band and 4 new girls in velvet corsets. Some say she's immoral. Others say she's practical. Historians still argue whether saloon madams were moral deviants or moral outcasts. But from here, you can see the truth. She's doing what she must to keep the place alive, and to keep the women under her roof safer than the prairie would. She's not naive. She knows towns love to build women up just to tear them down. One week she's being toasted in the back of the saloon with a bottle of champagne smuggled in from California. The next, a temperance group leaves a dead cat on her doorstep. She shrugs it off, but she never forgets. You hear her talking to one of the girls, new, barely 17, voice full of tremble. "Will they always hate us?" the girl asks. The madam doesn't flinch. "They hate what we remind them of," she says, matter of fact. "That they want things they're not supposed to want. That they like us more than their own rules." It's not cynicism. It's clarity. She learned this early. Back in another town before this one, she was just one of the girls. She once saved a customer from choking on a chicken bone. Got a standing ovation from the bar, flowers from his wife the next day. But a month later, when a young boy went missing, who do you think they searched first? Her room, her bags, her drawers. He turned up at the train station, alive and well, just lost. But no one apologized. That's when she realized, reputation is never yours. It's rented. So you make the terms. You decide the price. You sell wholesomeness to the Widows' Guild and sin to the card players and keep just enough mystery to make them doubt every rumor they hear. She holds monthly charity raffles, partly to keep up appearances, partly because she likes them. One time, she donated 3 quilts to the orphanage. They were handmade by one of the girls who used to be a seamstress before life twisted sideways. The town paper printed a thank you. Then, in the same issue, called her place a moral shadow on Main Street. She clipped the article, framed it, and hung it in the hallway, right under a painting of Joan of Arc. When things get especially tense, like last spring, when the circuit preacher brought a moral reform agent from Kansas, she shifts strategy, tones down the music, shuts the upstairs rooms for 2 nights, invites local wives for a ladies' tea in the parlor, offers lemonade, cake, and scandalously good gossip. 2 of them fainted. One came back the next week asking about work. It's a tightrope act. Too much visibility and she's a target. Too little and she disappears from the power map. She has to remind the town she exists, without ever giving them enough reason to erase her. That balance shows in her clothing. Not too much lace, just enough ruffle to look expensive but not indecent. Her voice never rises above conversational volume. Her laughter, controlled, low, as if everything amuses her just enough to stay dangerous. She doesn't flirt, not like the girls do, but she knows how to hold a man's gaze for 1 second longer than she should. Just long enough to make him question his own intentions. And that's the trick, isn't it? She never gives them what they want, just what they think they're getting. Illusion is safer than truth, and much more profitable. You notice how she walks into the barber's shop on Thursdays. Not to flirt, but to get her boots polished by the only man in town who does it right. He complains every time, grumbles about her kind, but never charges her. She tips him anyway, and when someone spreads a rumor, say, that she poisons her girls to keep them docile, she doesn't yell. She simply invites the gossiper in for a drink, smiles, serves it herself. The rumors die off within a week. You once saw her refuse service to a man who called her a painted devil. She didn't throw him out, just told the bouncer to sit with him for an hour, saying nothing, smiling. Every time he spoke, Artie just blinked. He left mid-sentence, never returned. In the Wild West, where laws are flexible and memories are short, a woman's survival depends not on being liked, but on being respected, feared, and occasionally admired. She's all 3, and somehow she makes it look easy. You don't expect to walk into a saloon and hear singing that makes your chest ache. But here you are, frozen in the doorway, listening to a voice so rich and mournful you almost forget where you are. It's coming from the stage or what passes for a stage, where a girl in sapphire silk stands with one gloved hand on the upright piano, eyes closed, voice pouring like warm syrup over the crowd. The room is spellbound. And the madam? She watches from the corner, arms folded, head tilted, judging every note not for beauty, but for market value. Because tonight isn't just about drinks or cards. It's about entertainment, dreams, escapes, illusions. And the madam is the woman selling those illusions by the bottle, by the song, and, depending on the night, by the hour. Her role here isn't limited to boss, banker, or even queenpin. Tonight, she's also a talent scout, a spiritual advisor, and, on more than one occasion, a purveyor of utter nonsense that just happens to work. She discovered the singer 3 weeks ago in a back alley, trying to trade a pair of boots for a stagecoach seat. Instead, the madam offered her a warm meal and a 5-night contract. By night 2, the men were putting their cards down just to listen. By night 5, she doubled the girl's pay and told her she was not allowed to leave town until further notice. That's how you build a reputation. Most folks think a saloon madam just hires girls to flirt. Wrong. She curates a whole experience. The doorman has a better memory than a court stenographer. The bartender mixes a local favorite called the Widowmaker with the precision of an apothecary. The piano man, not much for conversation, but plays songs from 3 different territories without missing a beat. And the fortune teller in the back? Well, that one's interesting. Her name is Minerva. No last name, no backstory she's willing to share. She reads palms by lamplight and whispers predictions in a French accent so thick, it might be fake. Probably is. But the customers love it. And the madam? She pockets a share of the coin for every reading. One man cried when Minerva told him he'd survive the winter. He hadn't even said he was sick. Just looked tired. It was theater. Healing. And it worked. The madam once joked she should start a church. People want belief more than truth, she said, sipping tea laced with bourbon. And I've got both by the barrel. It's not just palm reading, either. There are other add-ons to the evening, moonshine ceremonies, pocket seances, even a bottle labeled authentic Apache elixir for male fortitude. You don't want to know what's in it. But men buy it. Often. Historians still argue whether madams believed in this stuff or just saw the dollar signs. Some accounts suggest certain madams kept dream journals, consulted with shamans, and buried charms under the floorboards to protect their girls from violent clients. This one, she keeps a silver coin under each step of the staircase. Says it keeps evil from climbing too high. Maybe she's kidding. Maybe not. There's an odd rhythm to nights like these. The drinks flow, the music rises, the laughter grows louder. And just when it might tip into chaos, the madam moves. Adjusts the lighting, cues a slower song, sends one of the quieter girls to the loudest table. It's like watching a conductor at work. But behind the velvet and violin strings, there's still business. Always. She's tracking which acts bring in the most coin, which jokes land, which customers tip before they drink. One girl juggles lemons while walking in heels. Another does a magic trick with cards and cleavage. Each has their niche, and the madam treats them like assets in a living portfolio. She once fired a ventriloquist who offended a banker. Not because of the insult, but because his puppet scared the pianist so badly he refused to play the rest of the night. And without music, sales dropped 12%. The numbers don't lie. Quirky bit? The madam keeps a notebook labeled Unusual Requests. It's a handwritten archive of every strange thing a customer's ever asked for. From being serenaded by 3 girls in matching hats to a mock court trial for a stolen heart. She granted half of them. She granted half of them. The other half? Well, let's just say there are limits even in a place like this. Still, if someone offers enough coin, she might consider anything short of sacrilege or violence. Once, a traveling dentist, yes, really, offered to fix every girl's teeth in exchange for a private performance of Othello using only sock puppets and furniture rearranged to resemble Venice. She said no, then thought about it, then said maybe, then charged him double and made it happen in the upstairs parlor with curtain rods as swords. Because that's the magic trick. The madam doesn't just sell pleasure. She sells possibility. She gives a broken miner the illusion of sophistication, a grieving widow the illusion of company, and a washed-up prospector the illusion that someone, somewhere, still wants to hear his story. And the girls? They aren't just performers. They're experts in improvisation, part-time psychologists, and accidental historians. One can recite poetry. Another knows how to roll cigars while humming folk ballads from back east. Each one has a story, Curated, polished, and occasionally real. The madam makes sure of it. There's strategy even in how the girls are assigned. A rowdy crowd gets a sharp-tongued, no-nonsense redhead. A room full of shy travelers gets the soft-spoken brunette who listens better than she talks. It's not matchmaking, it's emotional crowd control. She once paired a belligerent railroad foreman with a girl who only spoke in riddles. By the end of the night, he was so baffled he left without arguing, convinced he'd just received wisdom from a prophetess. He tipped her $5. She tipped the madam too. Open debates swirl among historians about how much autonomy these performers truly had. Some believe madams tightly scripted their acts and dictated every word. Others say the women chose their roles and leaned into them freely, using the saloon as their stage, their armor, their escape. In this saloon, it's a bit of both. The madam has final say, always, but she listens. When one of the girls wanted to learn juggling knives, the madam didn't say no. She bought her rubber practice blades and made her rehearse in the alley until no one lost a toe. Every now and then, a customer tries to hire away a girl, to take her with him to another town, another saloon, a supposed better life. If the girl wants to go, the madam gives her the fare and a parting gift, usually a brooch or a note tucked into a sewing kit. If the man's lying, though, and she knows when he is, she'll quietly advise the girl to stay. Some listen, some don't, and some come back. Once, a girl returned a year later, face lined, dress torn, and eyes hollow. The madam took her in without a word, fed her soup, and let her sleep for 3 days. Then offered her a new dress and a job, this time as part of the band. Because that's the other thing they don't tell you. Madams aren't just businesswomen. They're talent developers, rehabilitators, second-chance architects. They turn survival into theater and vice into something dangerously close to art. In the back of her office, tucked between accounting books and emergency cash, the madam keeps a scrapbook. Clippings of show posters, sketches by girls who dreamt of fashion school, love poems left on tables by drunk clients. It's not sentimental, not really, but she flips through it on quiet mornings. There's a page with a dried rose, flattened and brittle. No one knows who gave it to her. She won't say. By midnight, the saloon is buzzing again. A new act is on, 2 sisters with tambourines and a borrowed accordion. The crowd is clapping along badly, and someone started dancing with a chair. You think about how strange it all is. How behind the laughter and song is a woman orchestrating a fragile symphony of danger and dignity. And she does it nightly, without applause, without sleep, without asking for permission. By dawn, the tambourines have stopped ringing, the floor's been swept twice, and the last client has been gently ushered out with a firm pat on the back and a subtle suggestion not to come back until payday. The saloon falls into its quieter rhythm. Tables wiped, chairs tilted, lanterns extinguished one by one. And the madam? She's sitting at her desk, sleeves rolled, ledgers open, quill tapping thoughtfully against her chin. This is the part no one sings about, the part where the fantasy ends and the financial fires begin. Because what they never tell you about boomtowns is just how fast they bust. You watch as she flips through receipts, frowns at a scrawled invoice, and mutters something about the price of imported sugar. A bottle of perfume shattered in the storeroom last night. There goes $7. 2 whiskey barrels are late from the depot. There goes a weekend's worth of specials. And a girl is asking for an advance on her pay to send home for a funeral. There goes whatever wiggle room was left in the budget. Welcome to the unglamorous reality of running a saloon in a town built on gold dust and borrowed time. When things are good, they're really good. The mines are booming, the rail lines are hiring, and men have silver in their pockets just begging to be spent. On those nights, the girls can barely keep up, and the madam pockets enough cash to make her seriously consider installing gas lamps. Maybe even real windows. But when the money dries up, everything becomes a game of credit, barter, and bluffing. She knows which suppliers will wait 3 weeks for payment and which ones will send a bruiser with a ledger and bad breath. She knows which girls have savings and which are secretly borrowing from the card dealer. She also knows that if one more client pays in gold flakes instead of real coin, she's going to lose her mind trying to weigh and verify it. Boomtowns don't come with stability. They erupt. Fast, messy, exciting, and then just as quickly fizzle, leaving behind boarded-up storefronts, empty beds, and unpaid debts. You walk with her through the storeroom. It's not just barrels and crates. It's a living budget. That stack of linens? Bought on discount from a failed hotel 3 towns over. Those boots? Resold twice and polished to fake newness. The mirrors on the wall? Only half are glass. The rest are polished tin. It's cheaper, and under low light no one can tell the difference. She once hosted a dance night where the band was just one guy with a harmonica and another banging a pot. She called it rustic rhythm. Still made a profit. Quirky habit? She marks the calendar with red chalk for thin weeks. Days she expects low turnout based on mine schedules, rainfall, and even the phase of the moon. Her notes include phrases like, fewer cowhands, check rodeo date, and avoid buying bacon. She doesn't just guess. She tracks. Historians still argue whether madams like her were savvy entrepreneurs or just lucky opportunists. But if this is luck, it's the kind you drag by the hair into your pocket. Sometimes you hear her talking to herself. Not muttering, not spiraling, just rehearsing deals she might need to make. Practicing refusals. Counting out how many days she could run the place if the railroad shut down again. The answer? 9. 10 if she waters the wine. And yet, somehow, she's never desperate. Even when things get tight, she has too many layers of fallback plans. A side hustle selling hair tonics. Renting out the upstairs rooms as executive offices during slow season. Hosting literacy lessons for children in the front room once a month, which makes the place look civic-minded enough to scare off reformers. She even dabbled in real estate, bought a crumbling barn on the edge of town for $20. Turned it into a gentleman's social club annex. No one's entirely sure what happens there, but the members keep coming back, and she keeps raising the dues. Then there's credit. The madam hates it, but she uses it. Carefully. She extends small tabs to longtime clients, but only the reliable ones. The rest? She has a system of symbols. Stars, crosses, moons, carved in tiny notches on the edge of the bar to remind her who owes what. If she pours you a drink near the 3rd notch from the left, you're in trouble. Sometimes she loans money to other businesses. Quietly, an undertaker needed a new cart. She fronted the cash. Now, every time someone dies, the funeral procession pauses in front of her saloon out of respect. And maybe advertising. She's pragmatic that way. If you want to survive, she once told a younger girl with stars in her eyes, you have to love money like it's your last match in a snowstorm. Keep it dry. Guard it like heat. And when that fails, she begs. Not out loud, of course. Not in words. She begs by smiling harder, by throwing an extra bottle into a shipment she can't afford, by staying up past dawn to write letters to suppliers begging for patience, while pretending it's just a delay in postal delivery. And sometimes, just sometimes, she prays, not to any god in particular, but to the spirit of the saloon itself, to the cracked bar, the worn floor, the bottle of bourbon with one swig left. She lights a candle, says nothing, just hopes, because in a boomtown, hope is currency. And she's been rich and broke and everything in between, but never hopeless. Never that. So she tightens the ledger's binding, slips a spare coin into her pocket, and adjusts the open sign just slightly to catch the rising sun. Because the show must go on. Even if the roof leaks, even if the gold dries up, even if no one's watching. The saloon is quiet, too quiet. No music.
No laughter.
Just the clink of a glass being wiped clean, the creak of floorboards, and the low thrum of something off. You feel it the moment you step inside. The air is different tonight, thicker. The light sits wrong, and the madam is standing behind the bar, still as a fence post, watching the front door like it owes her money. She's not wearing her usual satin. Tonight it's something darker, simpler, practical. The girls aren't downstairs yet. You don't hear the piano. Then the door swings open and he walks in. You don't know him, but you recognize the type. Loud boots, heavier than they need to be. A voice that's already yelling before it's raised. A body held too tightly, like a whip wound up and waiting. This is the kind of man who thinks kindness is weakness, and silence is a challenge. And tonight, unfortunately, he's decided he wants to be entertained. The madam is ready. He strides up to the bar, demands whiskey, slams down a coin that's barely worth the metal it's stamped on. She pours the drink. Slowly, calmly, not because she's scared. She's calculating. This isn't the first time. Won't be the last. Some nights, she manages 5 kinds of danger at once. The drunk, the lovesick, the cheated gambler, the homesick soldier, and the man who confuses woman with target. She reads them like menus, and she's memorized the recipes. This one, he's all swagger and no sense. She lets him talk, lets him laugh at his own jokes, lets him lean in a little too far across the bar. Then she taps the underside of the counter once. You don't hear it, but Artie does. The bouncer slides into the room like a ghost with fists. He leans against the wall, arms crossed, quiet as a hanging rope. The man at the bar doesn't notice yet. The madam pours another drink. This one's stronger. Because here's the truth you can't ignore. Clients aren't always cowboys with broken hearts and songs in their heads. Some are dangerous. Some are violent. Some see the saloon as a place where rules bend and people break. And it's the madam's job to make sure no one breaks but her furniture. She trains her girls in subtle signals. A dropped glove means stay close. A turned lamp means get help. A humming tune means I'm nervous, come interrupt. Most of the time it works. Most of the time, trouble can be redirected, pacified, escorted out with a laugh and a wink. But not always. She keeps a list in her desk. Not names. Incidents. Pulled a knife during poker. Cornered Ellie near stairs. Refused to leave. Threatened fire. Just facts. She refers back to it when she needs reminding. This work is survival. It is safety first and always. There's a legend among the girls. Years ago, one man came in waving a revolver, demanding his sweetheart return to him. No one knew him. No one liked him. Before Artie could move, the madam took a full bottle of rye and cracked it over his head from behind the bar. The bottle shattered. So did his plans. He woke up the next day halfway to another town, minus his boots. Historians still argue whether it really happened or just became part of her growing mythos. Either way, the girls swear by it. One keeps a shard of a broken bottle on her nightstand like a talisman. Tonight, though, no bottle breaks. The man at the bar tries to slam his cup down for a refill, and finds Artie suddenly at his side. House limits too, Artie says, voice low and gravel thick. The man bristles, looks to the madam. She's already moving, already stepping from behind the bar with the calm poise of someone who's stared down a thunderstorm before. She leans in, whispers something you can't hear. The man stiffens. His mouth works. Then he laughs. Too loud, too fake, and tosses up a coin. I was just playing, he says, backing away. The girls don't come down until he's gone. Later, one asks what she said to him. The madam doesn't answer, just smiles that same closed-mouth, half-murderous smile. Then says, he'll go drink somewhere else now, somewhere that won't miss him. You sit at the end of the bar, watching her rub at the scuffed counter with the edge of her sleeve. She's already back in work mode, rearranging bottles, counting glassware, checking supplies. But the room still feels cold, like the wind from that man's presence hasn't quite blown out. Here's the part people forget. A madam doesn't just entertain clients. She manages them, shapes them, predicts them. She has to be charming enough to disarm, firm enough to survive, and terrifying enough to make a 6-foot drunk think twice about yelling. She does all three. There are quiet stories from other towns. Madams who disappeared after crossing the wrong man. Girls who left in the night with bruises they wouldn't explain. One madam was found face down in a river with rocks in her apron. They said she slipped. No one believed it. That's why this madam teaches every girl how to throw a punch, how to use the heel of a boot, how to aim a derringer. There's a locked drawer upstairs full of knives, just in case. And yet, through all this, she still runs a place of laughter, of music, of light, Because that's the second trick. Not letting the darkness eat everything else. She tells a joke after the tension fades. Pours a shot for the piano man. Lights a lamp shaped like a dog wearing spectacles and sets it on the bar just to make people blink. Because the saloon needs to breathe again. And so do the people inside it. You sip your drink slowly and realize the truth. It's not the piano or the whiskey or the women that keep this place running. It's her. And she doesn't just run the room. She protects it. You're halfway through your drink, when the front door opens with a gust of wind and a sound like something torn in half. Heads turn. Laughter fades. And in walk three women, not the usual new girls, not clients either. No, these three are something else entirely. They're rivals. One wears a green feather taller than common sense. Another's corset is so tight you're amazed she can breathe, let alone sneer. The third is older, eyes sharp, hair pinned high and hard like armor. And the way she walks, heels clicking slow and deliberate across the floorboards, makes it clear she didn't come for a drink. She came for a message. You look to the madam. She doesn't flinch, doesn't blink, just tilts her head slightly, like a cat watching birds debate whether they're safe. Because in the Wild West, competition isn't just over customers. It's over territory, reputation, and the delicate ecosystem of whispers and glances that keeps a saloon from falling into chaos. And when another madam rolls into town, that's a threat with powder packed behind it. The saloon rivalry isn't always guns and bar fights. But don't be fooled, this is war. And women like them, they fight dirty. It starts subtle. Last week, a new boarding house opened 2 streets over. Late hours, red curtains. A man stumbled out of there yesterday with lipstick on his shirt and rumors on his tongue. And just like that, the game is afoot. This isn't the first time. Your madam has fended off newcomers before. Once, a woman named Miss Peaches opened a velvet and crystal paradise 2 towns over and sent letters offering liberation to any girl who wanted to defect. Your madam responded by sending a fruit basket laced with laudanum. No casualties. But Miss Peaches closed up shop a month later. Historians still argue whether rival madams used poison, politics, or just sheer charisma to win territory. Probably all 3. And sabotage? That's practically an art form. A few years ago, someone set fire to your madam's stables. Just enough to singe the boards and scare the horses. The town blamed dry air and lanterns. She blamed a rival named Lorna. 2 weeks later, Lorna's wine shipment mysteriously went missing. No proof, of course, just gossip, and the madam smiling into her tea. But not all rivals are anonymous. These 3, they want to be seen. The woman in the middle steps forward. Her voice is honeyed, but you can hear the threat beneath. Lovely place, she says, running her gloved fingers along the bar. We've just opened our own little house near the station. Thought we'd come by and say hello. Woman to woman. Your madam smiles. It is not a nice smile. Well, bless your heart, she replies. It's brave, starting something new. I hope your girls are as trained as your manners. The air goes cold. This is the Wild West version of Pistols at Dawn, but with corsets, coded language, and the kind of eye contact that can sharpen steel. The rival madams stay for 1 drink. They don't pay. They don't tip. They leave a business card. Ivory, gold-trimmed, offensive in its crispness. The moment they're gone, the madam picks up the card, reads it, then casually drops it into a candle flame. Curls and blackens like the tip of a scorched match. She's ready. That night, she meets with her girls behind closed doors. Tones tighten. Assignments shift. One girl is sent to the rival saloon as a client to report back. Another is posted near the Stagecoach Depot to spread positive gossip. A third is assigned to flirt with a key liquor supplier, just enough to ensure deliveries start arriving late to the new place across town. You realize something as she orchestrates this campaign like a general with an army of clever, well-dressed spies. Saloon madams weren't just survivors, they were tacticians. They ran intelligence networks tighter than some military posts, knew who was sleeping with whom, who owed whom, and who could be persuaded to switch sides with a smile and a bottle of clove-infused gin. And the rivalries weren't just about business. They were personal, brutal, sometimes even fatal. There's a tale of two madams in Dodge City who publicly insulted each other for months, until one mysteriously broke her leg falling down a stairwell that didn't have any stairs. Another lost all her girls in one night when they were poached by a better-paying competitor. She responded by marrying the mayor, closing her saloon, and opening a church next door just to annoy them. Your madam plays a longer game. She doesn't retaliate immediately. She lets them sweat, lets the rivals get comfortable. And then she acts. This time, she throws a free concert, hires 3 musicians and serves cider at half price. She even invites the schoolteacher. Just enough class to draw in the curious, just enough sin to keep them spending. The town shows up in droves. The rivals? They watch from across the street, arms folded, dresses stiff in the wind. And the madam? She lifts a glass in their direction. Not mockingly, not smug, just confidently, because this is her town. And no feather-wearing upstart is going to change that. You think you've seen it all by now. The velvet gowns, the bribes, the brawls. You've watched the madam negotiate like a mayor, treat fevers like a field nurse, and scare off men twice her size with nothing but a raised eyebrow. But then one morning, she steps out wearing a little black hat with a lace veil and greets a stranger with a kiss on both cheeks and a fake French accent thicker than pancake batter. And suddenly you realize you haven't seen half of what she's capable of. Today, the madam isn't a businesswoman or a queenpin. Today, she's Madame Geneviève Dubois, recently arrived from Paris, and owner of La Maison de Lumière, the town's newest cultural salon. You almost choke on your coffee. The place hasn't moved an inch. Same doors, same walls, same crooked portrait of a weeping woman above the piano. But the branding? Entirely reborn. The girls now wear sashes. They refer to customers as Monsieur. One of them has developed an entirely new personality, claiming to be from Marseille despite being born 2 miles up the road. And the madam? She doesn't drop the act for a second. Her English is suddenly laced with soft R's and theatrical sighs. It is, in a word, brilliant. See, when coin runs thin and reputation needs a boost, a smart madam doesn't wait around hoping for luck. She reinvents, rebrands, rainspires, and nothing sells faster in a dusty western town than a fantasy involving lace, accents, and the promise of European sophistication. She didn't make up the trick. Other madams have done it before, turning boarding houses into continental retreats, and their girls into alleged daughters of fallen aristocrats. One in Kansas claimed her parlor girls were trained at the Paris Conservatory. They could barely hum a lullaby, but that didn't stop them from charging triple. Historians still argue whether clients believed any of this or simply enjoyed the effort. It didn't really matter. Believability is optional. Charm is mandatory. Your madam plays it perfectly. She starts offering French wine, cheap port with a French label pasted on, holds poetry readings from a book no one understands, and adds language tutoring to the services list. She even starts naming the upstairs rooms after European cities. Want the Vienna suite or the Naples room? That'll cost you extra. You're not sure whether to laugh or be impressed. Probably both. But the rebrand is only part of it. What really changes things is property. The madam, without fanfare, has purchased the building next door. On paper, it's a dry goods and fabrics shop. In reality, it's her leverage. She expands her operation subtly, adding a hidden passage between the buildings and turning the upstairs into discreet meeting spaces for the town's more nervous clientele. Businessmen, widowers, one very jumpy preacher who insists he's just there to pray somewhere quiet. Sure, she paints the outside pale blue, adds lace curtains and little flower boxes in the windows. It's respectable, even quaint. No one asks too many questions. That's the trick. While other saloons fight for attention, she buys anonymity, legitimacy, roots, and roots mean permanence. Most madams lease their space. Not her. She owns it. She's immune to landlord threats, rent hikes, or sudden inspections. And now, with this second property, she's created a safety net and an exit plan. That's right. Every smart madam has an exit plan. Not necessarily to leave, but to change shape. If the law tightens or the town turns against her, she'll quietly shutter the saloon and open a tailor's shop or a tea room, run by the same girls under different names. She even invests in land on the edge of town. Just a few acres. Nothing flashy, but enough to start a boarding school or a vineyard if things go sideways. Quirky touch. She's drawn up fake floor plans for a future Hotel Genevieve, complete with artist renderings. She keeps them in her desk drawer. Sometimes, she pulls them out and tweaks the sketches, adding turrets or balconies like a child drawing their dream treehouse. It's a fantasy, sure, but around here, fantasy is her stock in trade. And then, of course, there are the side hustles. The latest, a line of skin tonics and face creams, bottled in blue glass and sold under the name Le Secret Diminuit. The secret? Mostly rose water and egg whites. But packaged right, it flies off the shelves. She tells customers it's a French formula passed down through generations. It's not. She invented it while nursing a hangover. She also begins writing letters to distant business contacts, to other madams she's heard of but never met. She's building a network or maybe an empire. Quiet, careful, but growing. You realize something as she walks past you, veil fluttering slightly, heels clicking with confidence across her floor. She's not just surviving anymore. She's expanding, diversifying, and it's not about greed. It's about control. The Wild West favors men with guns and horses, but she's carving out her own kingdom, one built on illusion, real estate, and a dozen perfectly placed lies. And the best part? No one sees it coming. They think she's just a saloon madam with a flair for perfume and velvet. But she's becoming something else entirely. And you get the feeling this isn't her final form. The storm rolls in like a fight nobody wants but everyone saw coming. Sky split wide. Thunder like gunshots. And under it all, the soft tap-tap of rain beginning to dance on the saloon's roof. It's the kind of night that turns a town quiet, unless you're inside this building, where things are never quite silent. Tonight, the madam isn't reading ledgers or adjusting corsets. She's flipping through the guest book. Not the official one, the real one. The one kept in a false-bottom drawer, bound in cracked leather, corners soft from wear. The one where she writes names nobody else should ever know. Because not everyone who passes through the saloon is a harmless card player or lonely ranch hand. Some? They're outlaws, fugitives, drifters with bloody hands and reward posters tucked inside their coats. And sometimes, they're the madam's best customers. You lean back in your chair, pretending not to watch as she runs her fingers over the pages. You catch glimpses of aliases, crossed-out names, strange symbols next to certain entries. A black X, a red star, a gold circle. You don't ask what they mean. You don't want to know. She has rules, of course. They all do. Don't bring your violence inside. Don't use the girls as cover. Don't brag about bounties. And don't ever, ever threaten her staff. But if you can follow those rules, well, she's willing to give you one night of safety. Maybe two. There's a legend about a train robber who passed through once. Wounded, bleeding, disguised as a traveling preacher. She let him stay in the cellar for 3 days, fed him broth, even changed his bandages. Then she sent him on his way with a clean shirt and a fake name. He mailed her a silver locket 6 months later. No note, just the locket. Then again, there's also the story of the horse thief who came in bragging about his latest crime. Too loud, too bold. She served him whiskey, let him win a hand of poker, smiled the whole time. Next morning, the sheriff found him asleep on a bench outside, hogtied, gagged, and with a handwritten list of his crimes pinned to his chest. Historians still debate whether madams like her were criminal accomplices or simply opportunists. The truth, as usual, is slipperier. She doesn't help criminals. She helps people she understands. And sometimes those people carry guns and secrets. The saloon becomes a kind of neutral zone, a middle space where sin and civility shake hands over gin. And she's the referee. One night, a bounty hunter comes through the door. Tall, dusty. That particular brand of mean you can't teach, only earn. He orders a drink and starts asking questions. Too specific. Too loud. The madam listens quietly, then excuses herself. You watch as she walks to the back, taps twice on the cellar door, then returns to pour another round. The bounty hunter finishes his drink. Never sees the sign she flashes to Artie. Never hears the back exit creak open. By the time he checks the rooms upstairs, the person he's hunting is long gone. She doesn't charge extra for this. She doesn't advertise it. But everyone knows. One night here and you're safe. If she allows it. She plays both sides but never at the same time. That's her gift. She can shelter a fugitive on Monday and serve the town marshal tea on Tuesday without blinking. The marshal? He suspects. Maybe even knows. But the madam knows his secrets, too. About his visits. His brother-in-law's debts. The girl he pays to braid his hair once a month. Just for the nostalgia. They keep each other in check. Quirky detail? She keeps a drawer of personal items left behind by wanted men. Lockets, cufflinks, handkerchiefs, trophies, some say. But really they're reminders. That every legend has a cost. That kindness, once extended, is not the same thing as forgiveness. She's refused fugitives before. A young man with blood still on his shirt. A woman with fire in her eyes and a dagger in her boot who wouldn't stop whispering names in her sleep. She turned them away at the threshold. Quietly, regretfully. I don't deal in ghosts, she said once. Just regrets with better manners. The girls upstairs don't always know who they're serving. Sometimes they guess. Sometimes they get it right. Most of the time they're told just enough to stay safe. But they trust her to draw the line. To keep the wolves on leashes. And she does. Until one night the line almost breaks. A guest. A man with a handsome face and a holster he never unbuckles. Recognizes another man across the room. You see the flicker of hatred. The sudden silence. The way he grips his glass too tightly. The madam sees it too. She doesn't raise her voice. Doesn't wave for Artie. She simply walks over and places her hand. Calm, bare, still, on the man's shoulder. You'll leave now, she says. Or you'll wish you had. He blinks, then nods. Just like that, the fire fizzles. She watches him go, then exhales. Just once. It's not just protection she offers. It's balance, memory, judgment. She's not the law. She's older than law. She's the story you tell afterward. The woman who knew everything but never told. The reason someone lived to regret their choices instead of dying in them. And as the rain hits the rooftop like boot heels marching away, she tucks the guest book back into its drawer, locks it, and lights a candle. For the names she can't forget. The rain has passed, but the air still carries that post-storm heaviness. Like the sky hasn't quite let go. The saloon, though, is already returning to form. The piano's humming. The glasses clink again. Laughter trickles back into the corners like it never left. But upstairs, something different stirs. You climb quietly, past familiar walls and old portraits. At the top of the stairs, a soft scent lingers. Rose water, wood polish, and something else, something older. A door creaks. A girl passes you with a tray of tea and tarot cards. She doesn't look at you. She's humming. In the madam's room, she's laying out clothes on the bed. Not just dresses, ritual outfits. One's midnight black with silver beading around the sleeves. Another is bright red with gold-threaded hems. There's a simple ivory nightgown embroidered with symbols you don't recognize. And then, of course, there's the lucky corset, green velvet, worn smooth in the boning, kissed by more lipstick smudges than you care to count. Because what no one expects, what they'd never dare guess, is that madams were deeply superstitious. Not in the way of candles and crosses. In the old ways. The quiet, personal, bone-deep ones. The ones passed from girl to girl like recipes and warnings. She never wears the same shoes on consecutive Fridays. Keeps a rabbit's foot tied with black ribbon beneath her desk. Burns cedar before every full moon. Even if it means closing the saloon 10 minutes early. And if a mirror breaks, that's a week off from business. Non negotiable. Some of it seems silly. She'll admit that herself. But in her world, luck is oxygen. And bad omens are more than just mood killers, they're liabilities. There's a portrait in the hallway she covers with a black veil on Thursdays. No one knows why. There's a chipped teacup no one's allowed to throw away. It remembers things, she says. She won't explain. One of the girls once wore a necklace shaped like an eye and got 3 bad clients in 1 week. The madam took the necklace, threw it in the fire, and scattered salt at the foot of the stairs. Just insurance, she muttered. Can't be too careful. Historians occasionally reference this side of madams with raised eyebrows and dismissive footnotes. Charming but irrational, one journal claimed. But others argue these women, living in lawless, volatile places, created their own systems of control through belief. In towns where a sheriff could vanish overnight, belief in omens, signs, and symbols was more reliable than written law. And the madam? She believes. She has a set of bone dice in her drawer, worn smooth from use. She rolls them before every major decision, new hires, big purchases, riskier events. Once, the dice came up snake eyes before a planned masquerade. She canceled it. That same night, a fire broke out in the kitchen. Coincidence? Maybe. But she lights a candle for those dice now. Every Sunday. Her dreams matter, too. She keeps a notebook beside her bed to jot them down. She says if she dreams of wolves, someone's lying to her. If it's drowning, a new opportunity is coming. Once, she dreamed of bleeding from her fingertips and didn't open the saloon that day. She said she felt watched. She also believes in omens tied to clients. If a man spills salt with his left hand, she won't let him upstairs. If someone whistles inside the saloon, she makes them leave.
No exceptions.
You want music? She says. We've got a piano. A new client once laughed at all this. Called her a witch in a way that wasn't entirely unkind, but wasn't kind either. She stared at him a long moment, then smiled. I don't need a broom, she said, but I'll fly anyway. He left halfway through his second drink. Walked out into the night and got caught in a horse stampede outside town. Broke both arms. No one laughed after that. Quirky habit? She never counts tips after midnight. Says it chases the luck away. She also never thanks a client before the drink is poured. Thank you afterward, she tells the girls. Gratitude too early makes them leave sooner. There's a brass bell in her office. Old, dented, and mounted beside her mirror. She rings it only when something good happens, like a profitable night, a safe return, or a girl's birthday. If you hear that bell, things are right in the world. You only hear it a few times a month. Tonight, you see her adjust her bracelets just so. Lace them in a particular order. She pins a dried lavender sprig into her hair. Taps her boots on the floor, left, right, left. A girl watches from the hallway, wide-eyed. Does it really help? She asks. The madam doesn't look up. Helps me, she says, and that's the heart of it. In a life run on uncertainty, clients, lawmen, illness, fires, betrayal. A few rituals are anchors. The world outside the saloon is chaos. But in here, she has systems, symbols, magic of her own making. You might not believe in omens,